Okay, I hope that this works because for whatever reason, my cell phone was being difficult, which is annoying because it was working great this morning at one. Oh, there we go. At least I double checked and confirmed that it's working. So there is that. All right, let's give it a few minutes. Welcome. Good afternoon, Michael Moore. We made it. Yes, there we go indeed. Oh, geez. Hold on one second. I'm going to clean up my background a little bit. Normally, I don't need to worry about how things look in the background. However, there we go. At least it looks a little bit cleaner back there now. Actually, if I could actually get this thing in. All right, I'm giving up the dream. That's the best I can do, but at least it looks slightly better than before. There you go, Michael Moore. A little difficulties in life in general, I think mean it's real, whether it's technical or otherwise. How is it going for you? I hope you're doing well and having a great afternoon. I hope everybody is doing well and having a great afternoon. Thank you all so much for being here. What is up, Christopher? How's it going? I hope that you're doing well. Take a moment, please hit that like and subscribe button to anybody who's new to the stream. If you're not new to the stream, well, if I was Epstein, I would have to be dealing with some file releases, I think, or maybe not. Who knows what's going to happen with that? So I might be nervous as I try to get my coffee here. Hello, Spirit. How is life down south of me? How are you doing? How is life treating you? How's Freemasonry treating you? Okay, well, I appreciate you being here. Obviously, first and foremost, go to the doctors or, don't be listening to me while you're in the doctor's office, for heaven's sakes. Take the time to listen to, don't bring me into the doctor's office. That's you and your doctor. That's the most important thing. But how are things going otherwise? How are things going with your channel and your streams? Are they still doing well? Hello, Dad. How is it going for you? How was your super fun procedure? It was yesterday, right? I hope it went well. I'm nervous because I'm getting older, and pretty soon it means I'm going to need to start having some of those procedures. That makes me very unhappy. A little chilly to the north. I'm sure it is a little chilly up north. You're not that much north of me, though, Michael. You're what, an hour? Not even that, 40 minutes north of me? If that. Good. How often are you streaming? I don't think we're not going to be able to do it on the 29th. I'll have to find another time to do a live stream. Maybe on your channel instead of mine. Oh, so in that case, you're fine because it's not that chilly here. I mean, I'm from Winnipeg, keep in mind. So to me, this is nice, warm springtime weather. Springtime in Winnipeg. I did it the other day. Okay, cool. Are you still finding that you're getting, more and more people showing up, which is awesome if you are? I had a great stream this morning at 1 a.m. Very well attended, a lot of people there. Tomorrow, don't forget, I have got two exclusive streams. I've got the normal regular stream from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Then I've got a stream for Patreon members, whether you're free or paid. And you can find the link for that by becoming a Patreon member. It's the most recent post. And then I have a stream from 3 to 4 that is exclusive for my YouTube members. So same thing. Yes, how is dad indeed? So once again, and for that, you just need to become a Patreon member. Um, or sorry, not a Patreon member, a YouTube member. You hit the join button on YouTube. So 1 to 2, um, nice. 3 p.m. Eastern, Global Masonic Zoom chat. Is that today? That's Thursdays, right? So just one more time, tomorrow, 1 to 2 normal live stream, 2 to 3 Patreon exclusive live stream, 3 to 4 YouTube member live stream. And to take part in any of those, or the last two, I should say, become a member, either a member of Patreon, including for free, or become a member of the channel. Uh, Everything went well. I'm tired today. As you would think. I mean, I don't know what that's like, but I'm assuming it's not a fun procedure. Well, then you'll get to be part of both. Good day, sirs. Good day to you. Oh, do you have a second channel? Because it looks like Michael Moore, you've got one for Michael E. Moore and one for at Brother Michael E. Moore 32nd degree. There's going to be some giveaways. Mostly it's going to be a chance for us to talk about what you want to see coming from the stream, what you want to see coming from Square and Compass Promotions. Because while I want to listen to everybody, I don't know why it came out that way then. It came out different. While I want to listen to everybody, obviously, those who have taken the time to be and spent the money, the time, whatever it is, to be a Patreon member or a YouTube channel member, I do want, when I get the chance, to kind of promote or thank you guys for being members by asking for what you want to see from the stream. Um, I appreciate that. Hello, Dream Seeker. How is it going for you? I hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to hit that like button. Feel like it's been a little while. How is life treating you? Things are going well for me, Dream Seeker. How about with you? How you liking this super fun weather of ours? Oh, I'm from Winnipeg. This weather's fine. You're a wuss. This weather's fine. It's beautiful. Well, I mean, you're a little bit north of us, Smokey. A lot of people don't realize how far south Windsor is comparatively to a lot of places in the States, which many of them are further north. So, well, fair enough, Dream Seeker. So you grew up in really cold. I think Sudbury might be colder than Winnipeg, or at least equal to. I know you guys could get a ton of snow up there. I visited Sudbury once, very briefly in summer. It was nice. It was a really cool little town. Very friendly people. I was taking a bus from from Toronto to Winnipeg, and one of the stops was Sudbury. So it was fun. And I ended up spending a night there. I forget if I had to, or if there was an issue with the bus, or if I just chose to book it that way so I could see Sudbury. But I remember that trip, anyways. Oh my gosh. Well, bundle up, stay warm, get some blankets, etc., etc. Do all that good stuff. Because minus 40, even for me, as someone who always talks about um, how much I love cold weather, which I do, I would still say minus 40 is a bit much. Welcome to everybody who's joining. Thank you for being here. Please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button, and let's chat about Freemasonry. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral? I'd love to hear them. Yesterday, there you go. I love being in. I was in Dubai, which is in the UAE, if I recall correctly. Or is it? Hold on a second. Let me make sure I got that right. Yeah, it is. Capital of UAE. So, like I said, one of my more fond memories of my travels is being in Dubai in a hotel, looking up at the ceiling and seeing an arrow pointing towards Mecca, and just realizing, hey, I'm in a different world, a different culture than ever before. I thought that was really, really cool. Um, I wish I got to see more of it. In the UAE, I got to see the airport, the lobby of the airport, and then the airport hotel, all of which was in the airport. So it's not as though I got to see more. One thing, though, when people talk to me about why I love Freemasonry, without question, one of the big things is travel. And the fact that I love traveling and getting to travel and have brothers. I didn't have any brothers in UAE, but I was on my way to see brothers. And I'm sure there are Masons in UAE, even though Masonry is not permitted there. There would still be Masons who, joined when they were out of country or immigrated to Dubai or have family or who knows what it is. I don't know yet. Well, it's one of those things, Smokey, right? It's always either feast or famine. You're either too hot or too cold. Um, I felt that way growing up in Winnipeg. It was always either way too hot or way too cold. But if I had to pick, I'd prefer the cold. Hold on just one sec. There we go. I think I just started. There we go. Started a poll. Let me know what your answer is to that question. The reason I ask is yesterday I read a study that said 10% of consumer spending in America, 50% of consumer spending in America is being done by 10% of the population, the richest 10%, and that the richest 10% is causing a boom in the luxury goods market. Apparently, luxury jets, luxury hotels, spas are making a fortune right now, while non-luxury items are actually falling precipitously. Like people are, you know, filling up their Windex with water to make it last longer and stuff like that. So you have this tale of two economies. But the question then becomes, if you do have a tale of two economies, what does that mean for Freemasonry? Is Freemasonry going to eventually become a luxury item, and that it'll price itself in such a way that it's exclusive to that 10 or 20% at the top who's already pushing so much spending? Or are they going to maintain their current levels? Um, See, that's always been my philosophy, Smokey. With the warmth, there's only so far you can go before the police get involved. With the cold, you can bundle up more and more. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's that's one of the reasons I prefer the cold to the heat. There's more options. Yeah, and the wind. I mean, I'm in a wheelchair, so if the wind is at my back, I love the wind. If the wind is at my face, I hate the wind. So 67%, I'm guessing 2 out of 3, have said yes, Freemasonry is a luxury good or product. So out of curiosity, the people who said it is, what do you mean by that? What makes it a luxury good? Do you mean luxury in terms of non-essential or luxury in terms of luxurious, like an adjective to describe something fancy? What are your thoughts as to why you would say it is? Or to the one person who said no, what are your thoughts as to why you would say no? Um, I do need more likes. So please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Consider doing a 99-cent super chat. All that good jazz would be much appreciated. It was interesting. Everybody must be like me because this morning's stream, the 1 a.m. stream, had a ton of people showing up for it. I think it got, I can probably find it here, 1,171 views, something like that, which was awesome to see. There you go. So that is an item, right? What is luxurious? Thank you, Curiosity Nudge. Everyone who is like, it's kind of like me and, I don't know, like me having a, fancy meal out. That would be luxurious to me because I couldn't afford it if it's, super fancy, or even just regular fancy. But to somebody who is doing well, it's would not seem to be luxurious. So part of the idea is, how are we portraying Freemasonry? Are we portraying it as though it's some type of luxury good? Or are we focusing on affordability? And if we focus on affordability and make it seem less luxurious, will that over time get less people interested in joining? Um, it is still cheaper than Netflix subscription. Maybe. I think it depends. Like for me right now, my cheapest dues is 175. Which would be, how much is 175 per year Canadian? What's Netflix per year? For the record though, the best streaming service is Tubi, Tubi, and it's free. Well, I don't know if 10% own 50% of the wealth. They may, but I do know, according to the study I read, that 10% are doing 50% of the spending. So, for every $100 that, is spent in the United States, $50 come from 10% of the population, and the other $50 comes from 90% of the population. So, but that 10% is also focusing their spending on luxury goods. If you want to email me, sure, Spirit, you can. Right. The danger of that is, again, from a Masonic perspective, if more and more spending is done by a smaller and smaller percentage. And if you look at Freemasonry as being something on which you spend money, are we going to get to a point where basically we're stuck? Not even, advertising isn't the right word, but are we going to be stuck with, 10% of the population from which we can potentially draw membership? Spirit, there's been many times in my Masonic career where I've felt things have been going badly. For what it's worth, without knowing the details, just giving you a general piece of advice. For what it's worth, it's best to stick with it, stick through. Things might be going better than you think, for whatever it's worth. At least that's always been my experience. Grand Lodge can be a pain, right? Ground Lodge, any Grand Lodge, Grand Lodges can be pains in the butt. That's okay. We all feel that way from time to time. We've all been through it. You're better off, generally speaking, sticking with it. Usually you can find a reason to stick around. Every doctor's late, Smokey. That is the doctor's raison d'etre. I'm pronouncing that horribly, I know. That is the doctor's raison d'etre to be late. They're always late. They're always late and they have terrible handwriting. They have those two things going for them. So at least it means you get to spend more time with me. So that's nice. Would you consider Freemasonry a luxury good or product? Yes, 33%. No. I'm going to put this on Twitter as well. Linking Atlas, nice to meet you as well. How's it going for you? I hope that you're doing well. Please, as always, take a moment to hit the like and subscribe button. I think you're already subscribed, so just hit the like button. Let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry. I'm just creating this poll quickly. What future for the world in general? Oh my gosh. That's hard to say. That's a good question. I mean, certainly I have some pretty significant concerns about the direction the world is taking, which would mean I have some pretty serious concerns for the future of the world. What I would say is I think that the future of the world will be better if Freemasonry is a major part of the world. Um, Well, there's definitely going to be a future of some sort, Smokey, even if, heaven forbid, every single human being were to be wiped off the planet, there would still be a future for the other animals. Eventually, a few million years, they may evolve into another life form. Who knows? Aliens could visit, even though I don't believe in aliens. Like, there's a million different ways that people could that things could evolve. And I'm not necessarily a speciesist in the sense that I'd love it if humanity kept going, but if we end up no longer on the planet and there's a new species that takes over, so be it. I'd prefer humans to go around for a few more millions of years. But I would say is there's going to be a future no matter what. The question is, will humanity be a part of that future, and will it be a good future? And to as much as it is up to anything, that is up to us. Um, so I don't think that's going to happen, Link, because I've heard of similar things. Actually, a friend of mine told me that was going to happen, and it never did. So, um, you can take it for whatever it's worth, but I doubt that very much. Um, so I guess what I'd say, Smokey, is don't be too negative. Even if you don't see a future for humanity, there'll be a future of some sort. And I think we all have at least a certain amount of power to potentially create a better future for ourselves. At least I hope so. But if electricity does go out, linking Atlas, then I guess that means no live streaming for me. But that's okay. Maybe I'll do smoke signals instead, or like send carrier pigeons out with messages to all of my people saying, please like and subscribe, or something like that. Maybe. I mean, there would be advantages for sure, right? I think the problem is like with everything in the world, we have become like even within Freemasonry, we have become so used like for a long time with Freemasonry, they would meet in buildings and it would be lit entirely by candlelight. Um and then and all summonses would be sent by post, or before that by horse. There was no telephones to call brothers, right? And now all of our buildings need to have heat, electricity, send out summonses. We're so used to it that if the electricity went away, could we in Freemasonry once again meet with meet under candlelight like regularly? Could we handle buildings that don't have electronic heating or heating of any sort? Could we get messages out to our brothers um, without um, email? Could we go back to doing postage? Right? How many brothers? Like, it's one of those things where when you think about a world without electricity, how much have we in 2025, how much have we come to rely upon electricity and all these modern inconveniences? Um, oh, the Scots are wonderful people. Yes, my trip is coming up on Sunday. I cannot wait. It's going to be an absolute blast. I'm very much looking forward to it. Um, It'll be really, really fun to see my old friends again. Well, see my family, I should say, to see my family. They're letting me stay with them. It'll be great to travel to Edinburgh. I'm just hoping it's not too rainy and wet and cold. If it's not, I'm going to try to check out Roslin Chapel as well, which is it's like half an hour from Edinburgh. Let me double check if I can find the exact Roslin. How do I spell Rosslyn Chapel? I can't remember. There it is. Rosslin. I'm trying to see how far away it is from Edinburgh and how easy it is to get there. It'd be wonderful to check out, that's for sure. Um, so it's about an hour by bus, the 37. Um, so I guess we shall see. However, I am just very excited. I think it's going to be an absolute blast. Travel there, getting all the paperwork done and stuff, no trouble at all. I got my what's it called? I got my ETA, I got my passport, I'm all set. Some wise people said few centuries with electricity. Maybe. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of good, right, that electricity does as well. Like, I would never want to get cancer. However, if I were to get cancer, I'm happy I get it in 2025 and not 1225, right? Because with electricity comes medical advancements, MRI machines, um, all of the different things that are necessary to potentially, if not cure, at least, to treat my cancer, right? Um, so somebody once said, he's a very conservative fella. He said he wants to go back to the politics of 1125, but not the dentistry of 1125. The point is, whatever your philosophies are, there's a lot of modern conveniences that exist in 2025 that I'm very, very grateful for, believe me. One of my favorite quotes ever, it's this meme, and somebody had posted a picture of a cathedral. I think it was from France, a cathedral, and they said, "Why don't we make wonders anymore?" And the person, somebody put underneath a picture of an MRI machine and said, "We do," and it was the MRI machine. The point is, with whether it be electricity or anything else, we still do some very, very wonderful things. Um, And, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to be more grateful for them while also recognizing there's a cost. Social media is a great example. YouTube is a great example. It's a wonderful thing. It allows me to do this and have a great time doing it. However, it comes with some drawbacks as well. So you have to kind of accept both at the same time. And hopefully, what you can do is try to mitigate the dangers and accentuate the successes. I hope everybody's doing well. Thank you, Michael Moore, for the advertising. It's much appreciated. Please, or the promotion, please take a moment, hit like and subscribe, and I hope everybody is doing well. Let's wait and see who else jumps in the chat. Who else wants to say hello? What's interesting is this question of, is Freemasonry a luxury good or service? It's almost 50-50. 57% no, 43% yes. So we're giving it a bit of time, just waiting to see who else jumps in the chat to say hello. Who wants to do a potentially a super chat as well. And I hope everybody is doing well. I mean, I suppose another better question we could be asking is, how should Freemasonry represent itself or market itself? Should it represent itself or market itself as a luxury item, or should it represent itself as being for everyone? What's interesting is this idea of being more quote unquote exclusive is another term, or luxurious. It can sometimes attract more people. Famously, a lot of, for example, even in some cases, scams. The way that they got people to join is by being incredibly exclusive. They would actually deny like 90% of the people who went to them, just which made the other 10% want to be part of it so much more. Which, not saying it's the best approach to take, but it's an interesting idea. Well, I mean, I would think, I guess nuclear energy is a type of electricity, right? I mean, there's hydro, there's nuclear. I think, to me personally, not a scientist, not an electrician, not an engineer, it seems to me that the best form of power would be nuclear. I understand there's been some problems with it, don't get me wrong, but I also think that in terms of the benefit to the environment, it's far better than certainly coal or anything that's emitting CO2. So that's just my humble opinion. Or we in Freemasonry can start a new trend and do everything by candlelight, and therefore encourage others to do everything by candlelight as well. Might not be the worst approach to take. And it's waiting to see who else jumps in the chat, who else wants to say hello. Normally, I'd be doing this through my cell phone, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, the microphone, it was not coming through. When I'm doing stream at 1 a.m., we'll see if it works then. And don't forget, I have my last 24-hour live stream of 2025, December 21st. So that should be really, really fun. And consider doing a 99-cent super chat. We're just going to wait, see who jumps in the chat, see who says hello. Hello from Buffalo, New York. Kenny Classics. Welcome, Kenny Classics. I like the way you spell classics. Buffalo, New York. Never been to Buffalo, New York, sadly. Let me ask you a question, though. Are you, Kenny Classics, a Freemason out of New York? Or do you have any questions or thoughts on Freemasonry? And please, by the way, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button if you can. I would truly, truly appreciate it. Are you coming here with questions, thoughts, comments, or Are you a Freemason yourself? I've been a Freemason since 2007, so 20 years. Um, or just about 20 years. No, sir, but I know many good men. Okay, very cool. Oh, King Edwards Jr., who might also be Kenny Classics. You're coming in under different terms. Okay, so you know many Masons. Do you have any questions about Freemasonry that I can try to answer? Again, I give only or exclusively my own opinion, no one else's opinion. I don't speak for any Grand Lodges, so take that caveat. But having said that, what are some of your thoughts and your ideas? Um, because really, this stream, I don't really have any specific topics per se. The closest thing I want to talk about was this idea of consumer spending in the States. And Freemasonry is not a product in the traditional sense. It's not a product in the way you would call, let's say, um, like a car or even a bag of chips. It's not a product in that sense. But to say it's not a product at all, I think we need to be honest. It's something that's being consumed. It's something that we as Freemasons are consuming, and we're asking others to consume. It's certainly, if nothing else, a consumption of our time, our energy, and our dues, whether it be $100 to $200 to up to $300 per year. And because it is consuming those things, we have a responsibility to think about consumer sentiment. Are the people in America, in Canada, are the consumers willing to consume upon Freemasonry? That's the question. I will let you guys. And so part of that means paying attention to consumer sentiment. And what you see in the States right now is a booming luxury good market being fueled by the top 10%, which is spending half of all the money going through the economy, while at the same time, um, you have the remaining 90%, cutting back on all spending, luxury or otherwise. So I think we in Freemasonry need to think, if consumer sentiment is plunging, or not even plunging, but is dropping, what does that mean for us within Freemasonry when it comes to where we're going to get our, for lack of a better term, customers from? I know it's not a great term to use, but I think sometimes we have to be a little bit more, we have to think about it more in those terms. So. And when you say King Edwards Jr., you know many good men. Are those, like, when you say, I assume you mean Masons, does that mean you had family members who were Masons, or friends of yours are Masons, or your town has a lot of Masons in it? How do you know the good men, or do you mean you just know good men who may be interested in being a Freemason? Because obviously the standard line you always hear is to make good men better. Um, Oh, so you know many good men who are interested in being Freemasons. Okay. I mean, I can tell you kind of why they may be interested in joining. However, everybody joins for their own reasons. Um, and they're going to get different benefits out of it. That's one of the trickiest parts of Freemasonry, right? Is not everybody joins for the same reason, and not everybody gets the same things out of Freemasonry. Or you have family who are Freemasons. Okay. I'm in the same boat. My pops is a Freemason, and both of my grandfathers are Freemasons. Um, I mean, they both passed away now. I'm at that age where it's happening. But yeah. And I have an uncle who's a Freemason as well. So it runs in the family for sure. I don't know how old you are, Kenny, or Kay Edwards. If you're around my age, um, you may have been growing up at a time when your grandfather didn't talk a lot about Freemasonry, but your father may have talked more about it. So who knows? What would you say are some of the things that your family told you about Freemasonry or told you about what it means to be a Mason? Um, if you can share, if you're comfortable sharing, I'd love to know. I'm just going to wait to see Kenny respond and wait to see who else jumps on the chat to say hello. We're just going to wait, give it a bit more time, see who else joins. Yeah, I mean, those are pretty decent ways to describe it. I think oftentimes, typically what you would hear people say is brotherly love, relief, and truth are the kind of key elements of what it means to be a Freemason. But I think community, fraternity, brothers, unity would be very good ways to describe it as well. Um, Oh, fourth generation is I think I might be fourth generation too. I was told that my great grandfather may have been a Freemason, but I don't think we know for certain. But my grandfather got his ring from somewhere, and we don't necessarily know where. So the assumption is great grandfather, which I guess for you, fourth generation is great great grandfather. No, it is really tough. I know some people have tried to trace their family history back, several hundred years, even in Freemasonry, but so much of it depends on how well the secretary was keeping records, right? So, I mean, that is though, you do bring up a really good point, Michael Moore. And one thing I've talked about a lot on this stream and every stream, we need to do a better job at maintaining our records and maintaining our record keeping. Um, Right. When you look at generations of Freemasons, it would mean a lot to somebody to be able to contact a lodge and find out that in 1835, their great, 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 great grandfather was a Freemason, for example, right? But that depended on a decent database. Don't you think before this social media and internet, everything was better? Um, in some ways, yes. In some ways, no. I mean, before social media and internet, I could not be doing this, and I would not be having an incredibly fun time doing this. So in that sense, I would say no. Um, on the other hand, certainly you had less. I know people don't like this term, but so be it. You had less amplification of misinformation or just lies. For example, if you were before social media, if you were a flat earther, you couldn't reach that many people with your crazy idea. In 2025, you can reach everybody with your crazy idea and get, even if 5% of the population believes it, now you have 5% of the population that are flat earthers. And we got to deal with that because that's going to hold us back in terms of science, right? Anti-vaxxers can spread their message easily. There's good sides and bad sides, positives and negatives to everything. Um, I would say it's been a net positive, but that's very, very net, is what I would say. Um, I do not believe the Earth is flat. That's my point. The Earth is round, but I've never met so many flat earthers until I started going on social media, and suddenly they all started popping up on my feed. That's a big part of it, Brother Michael Moore. That's a big part of it. It moved fast and etiquette keep up. But the other problem of it is it's so ubiquitous thanks to these things here, right? Like, um, um, what's a good example of what I'm trying to say? Uh, uh, like, so, and this is the problem that Freemasonry is facing as well. I'm trying to think of how to put this. Like, if I want to listen to some nonsense guy online sprout a bunch of baloney, he I can listen to him at my convenience, right? He's with me all the time. I can listen to him before I go to sleep. I can listen to him first thing in the morning. I can listen to him on the way to work. I can fit social media into my day-to-day life, both for good and for bad, right? So that means, for example, if I want to listen to a science documentary and learn more about science, and I've never had the chance to study it before, I can now listen to that science documentary on my way to work through a podcast, or I can watch it when I would, after dinner when the time is right. And I can take 2 weeks off if I'm super swamped and then get back to it. So it's not just ubiquitous, but it's ubiquitous and it's customizable. However, um, Freemasonry is competing against that, and Freemasonry is in many ways the opposite. That's what makes it so hard, right? Like if you're a Mason, your lodge meeting is 5 o'clock. Let's say your meeting is 7:30 on a Thursday. You don't get to say like that time doesn't work for me. I'm going to go to lodge 9 p.m. on Thursday or whatever it might be, right? You are responsible to make your time fit into lodge. Social media fits into your time, um which makes it much more appealing, I think, for a lot of people and much harder to fight against. Right? Like if I'm one of those people who um I like to be able to customize my experiences. I like to do things on my time and not on somebody else's time. Then YouTube is wonderful because I can listen to it whenever I want. Even with this stream and my videos, I post them at certain times. However, you can listen to them anytime you want. And that's incredibly appealing for a lot of people who are busy and need to schedule things in their own time. However, it makes it hard for Freemasonry to compete against that. I can join this organization that requires me to be at a certain place at a certain time, or I can listen to my favorite podcaster on YouTube whenever I so choose. One is much more appealing than the other, I think. And so that's something we are competing against. Um, Once again, thank you everybody for being here. Please take a moment, hit the like and subscribe button. And I hope everybody's doing well. I believe more good people around you without tech. I don't think they're good or bad. I think it's more with technology, it's easy for them to become lazy to demand customization of their schedules. I think it's also a lot easier for good people to fall into conspiracy theories and negative traps if they are online. But I don't think they're inherently bad people. I mean, I think people as a general rule can be quite bad. I think oftentimes people are lazy, selfish, and stupid. It's a very common way for people to be, but I don't think that's a technology thing, right? I think that's just a human nature thing, for better or worse. Um, but you do your best, and whatever challenges you're facing, you try your best to figure them out, I think is the key. Because for better or worse, technology, I don't think is going anywhere, which means we have a responsibility to adapt to it as best we can. And that's true for Freemasons as well as true for any other organization. We have to adapt to technology. Um, we cannot we cannot expect it to go away. We can complain about it, be upset about it, but will it make any difference? I don't think so. Well, right now they're going 50-50, right? So we've had 8 votes, 4 yes, 4 no's. I guess the question is what makes something a luxury good or a luxury product? My answer would be um, no, I don't think it is. However, I can understand there's a very decent argument for the opposite approach, right? I mean, if you define luxury just as anything you don't need, but are choosing to consume anyways, then you could argue Freemasonry is a luxury good or product in the same way this bag of chips is a luxury, or a chocolate bar is a luxury, or et cetera, right? Something you don't need, but are willing to spend money on. If you define luxury good that way or service, then without a doubt, it's a luxury um, good or product. Because nobody needs Freemasonry in the same way. Like air is not a luxury. Food is not a luxury. Shelter is not a luxury. Right. Those are necessities. Anything else you could argue is a luxury. If you define luxury in terms of high cost or high value, then it gets a little bit more complicated. What is the high cost or high value of Freemasonry? What makes it valuable? And is it valuable enough to be considered a luxury? The reason I ask that is, as I talked about it before, 10% of US spending is being done, 50% of United States spending is being done by 10% of the population. And a significant portion of that spending is being done on quote unquote luxury goods. So if we are looking for people to join and be willing to consume Freemasonry, I understand consumption is not the best term necessarily for it, but I think you can consider it in a sense consuming. It's consuming of your time, it's consuming of your energy, it's consuming of your finances. If they're willing to spend money on dues to consume Masonic dues in a sense, and is it going to be considered a luxury product? Are we going to be more and more focused on a smaller and smaller portion of the population, that 10% of the population? 10%, according to a study I just read, I think it was in The Economist, 10% of, 50% of consumer spending in the United States is being done by 10% of the population, right? So of every $100 that is spent in the United States, 10 people spend the first $50, or 10% is spending the first $50, and 90% is spending the other $50. That's why you have this really interesting situation in the American economy right now, where you have a luxury good market that's actually booming. What I was reading is luxury jets, planes, fancy hotels, fancy meals. It is a market that's growing hand over fist. People are spending money. That top 10% is spending money on those things pretty consistently. However, for the rest, there's this common practice of, like, for example, sales of Windex are down because people are buying one bottle and then after they use half of it, refilling it with water. And then after they use 75% of the diluted Windex, filling it again with water, right? You have a reduction in people. You have more people purchasing jets, and Windex is taking a hit. Apparently, people aren't spending as much money on ketchup. Even McDonald's CEO said more and more people he's finding are skipping breakfast. Right. But that's at McDonald's. Michelin star restaurants supposedly are doing quite well. So it's this idea of how do we consider Freemasonry? What do we consider Freemasonry? Do we try to market it as a luxury good? Apparently, there's a market for it. There's a market for rich people spending money on fancy hotels. Is there a market for rich people spending money to join quote unquote fancy or luxurious Masonic lodges? Could we reorient ourselves in that direction? Would that be fair to the Masons such as myself, who could not afford to spend, luxurious amounts on Masonic lodges? It's tough to say. But if we have right now 10% of the population being the most willing to spend money, and if within Freemasonry we continue to require to spend money, which we should, we need to pay our dues. Where do we market? How do we market? Et cetera, et cetera. I do hope everybody enjoyed my stream yesterday talking about International Men's Day 2025. And I hope it encouraged anybody who needs it to go and seek help. Call those numbers 988, whatever it might be. Welcome. Please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button if you get the chance. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope everybody is doing very well. Let's give it some bit more time. Let's see who joins. I'm really surprised. Honestly, I thought more people would say no, that Freemasonry is not a luxury good or product. So it's really interesting to me that people said yes. Let me see if I can find the story that I read about. Um, 10% of population doing 50% of spending. I'm just trying to find the quote or the article. I got the videos, but I don't want to show those. Marketplace. WARC, W-A-R-C. You can use this one, I think. And they're talking about this on YouTube as well. Like Breaking Point's talked about it. I'm going to check news. So yeah, this was from 2000. This was from September of 2025. The Federal Reserve is in a tricky place as it tries to balance a weakening job market and strong consumer spending. The August retail sales report came out yesterday and showed a third month of increased spending. Those retail numbers are growing more dependent on a smaller group of consumers. The top 10% of earners in the US accounted for nearly 50% of spending in the second quarter, the highest level it's been since this data first started being collected in 1989. Soaring home values and financial markets have helped the rich transform into the wealthy, and the economy does benefit from this in some ways. In fact, it's probably benefiting now. It's helped keep sales in the economy stronger than it would have been. Without the high earners, there'd be more people feeling inflation and less spending, and the unemployment rate would be higher. It's currently 4.3%. So yeah, as of September, anyways, top 10% of earners in the US accounted for nearly 50% of spending. I actually am curious, when they're talking about spending, are they including in that spending on social club fees, things like that? I'd be really curious to know. We're going to give it a bit more time and wait to see who else joins. Another question would be, how do you define luxury good? And Mr. Keeps, what do you think? Do you think being a Freemason or Freemasonry is a luxury good or product? And how would you define that? We're just going to give it a bit more time. Going to see who joins. See if the chat is still coming through okay. I feel like it's paused a little bit. Or it could just be that people are waiting, trying to figure out what they're going to talk about. Top chat, live chat. I don't have any specific topics for today's stream other than this idea of you could ask the question even, what makes a luxury good? So a luxury good is a non-essential product or service whose demand increases more than proportionally as consumer incomes rise. So certainly, it's very hard to argue that Freemasonry is essential in the way food is, or shelter for that matter. What's interesting is that second part, demand increases more than proportionally as consumers. So that means it becomes more valuable at a greater rate than incomes rise. So, for example, if the average income rises by 10% and a Bugatti increases in value by 50%, then the Bugatti is a luxury good. Freemasonry, in some ways, by that definition, is the opposite, in that despite the fact that wages have been, wages have been going up at very different rates for people. The demand on Freemasonry has not been increasing never mind more than proportionally. It's just not even increasing proportionally. And with that lack of proportional increase, it's very hard to argue it's considered a luxury good, at least in the community. That is my humble opinion on that. I'm going to give it a bit more time. Please take a moment, hit the like and subscribe button if you're new. Yeah, and that's ultimately what a lot of people, I think, when they hear luxury good, they think about it in terms of it's not linked to housing and food. So therefore, it is a luxury good. I'm not sure if I necessarily want to use that definition per se, because you can have luxury food items, right? I mean, theory, anything beyond eating gruel is a luxury good. We're just waiting to see a bit more time, see who joins. By the way, on a side note, um, nothing to do with Freemasonry, but one of my favorite television shows, Crossing Jordan, is now streaming on Prime. It's nice because I have a 8-hour flight or whatever to the old country, so it's nice to be able to know I can have some things to watch. Not that Air Canada is not pretty good already at having a lot of, it has a great selection of movies and stuff. So I love to travel. It's been a minute since I've traveled, so I cannot wait to get back to it and travel once again. If I have to eat and have shelter, an organization will take a back seat, but there's internal obligation. But if it wasn't obligated, it wouldn't be on my radar. Well, yeah, and I think that's a really good point Michael Moore has made as well, where obviously, like, if you're struggling just to get by, um, Freemasonry is not going to be on your radar one way or the other. Like if you're not a Freemason already, Freemasonry is not going to be on your radar. You're not going to be thinking about it because you're struggling just to make it, right? You're struggling just to survive. Um, or what can happen sometimes, in fairness, is if you're struggling sufficiently and you're struggling to such an extent that you are, I'm trying to think of what the word is, that you're getting angry and frustrated and pissed off about it. One thing that can happen is you maybe look for people to blame and you start to fall into conspiracy theories and conspiracy ideas. As a consequence of that, maybe you start to hate Freemasonry. Um, Other than that, though, I mean, if you are a Freemason, then you need to think about it in terms of, okay, can it be luxurious in a moment but not in others? So, for example, if you are if you have shelter, you have something to eat, you're doing okay in that sense, then Freemasonry and spending time to go to Freemasonry to be in your lodge, those things are not luxuries, right? The gas money to get to lodge, the time spent in lodge, none of those things are luxuries. However, by the same token, if you join a lodge and now you're struggling, you need to work two jobs, whatever it is, then suddenly you have a family to raise, then suddenly the time and effort that needs to go into Freemasonry, that becomes a luxury, and the money, and suddenly Freemasonry becomes a luxury, right? I've heard Masons say some version of, I just don't have the luxury to make it into lodge, right? Or to pay the dues or whatever it is. So but certainly the extent to which Freemasonry is or is not a luxury, that can change a lot depending on your circumstances in life. But I'm still fascinated that it was 50-50. I personally thought a lot more people would be saying no than yes. So, do you think if Freemasonry were either viewed as or marketed as more of a luxurious or more of a luxury, it would have more success um, in recruiting more people? Or do you think it have the opposite effect? Just waiting to see who else joins. No worries, Mr. Keeps. I'm just hanging out. Like I said, I don't really have a ton of. So that's a good point. I There's two definitions. First is something that is non-essential. The problem with that, though, is it very much. I think it's too broad. But under that definition, I think Freemasonry would be a luxury good for certain, right? It's not essential, certainly not essential in the way food, air, shelter is, et cetera, et cetera. I think the better way to look at it, though, is what Google provided. It's a non essential product or service whose demand increases more than proportionally as consumer incomes rise, which means, if consumer if consumers' incomes rise by 10% in a year, a Bugatti's price will rise by 50% in that year because the demand on it and therefore the price of it will increase at a greater rate than consumer incomes. That's what makes it a luxury, right? The fact that you're spending more on it than your raising income would dictate. And if that is the case, what's interesting is you would almost have to argue Freemasonry is not a luxury good because certainly the demand for Freemasonry, just look at our membership, has not been rising at all, let alone proportionally to rising wages. Um, Even though, a lot of people think wages have been stagnating, to my understanding, over the last several years, they have been rising just at very different rates. For the top 10%, they've been rising like gangbusters. For the rest, it's been relatively flat or stagnant. I think like 5%. Certainly not in keeping with their productivity. So, based on those definitions, what would you say? My answer would be no. Good or bad members? Well, they're all members. Like whether they're good or bad, because um, you have to define good or bad. Not more members or renewals of things are better. Well, you need both. Like I've always said, it's not about getting more membership. That is kind of a misnomer. We do need more membership, to be fair, but that's not the most important thing. That's not the most pressing thing. The most pressing and important thing is getting the members we have to attend regularly and to be engaged. At least be engaged if they want to. If they don't want to, that's okay too. Because for better or worse, in North America, that's what kind of Grand Lodges have decided. Um, I'm so okay. So, Mr. Keeps, for that one, I'm not sure if that's the case, but I genuinely don't know. Um, I genuinely don't know. My suspicion is more people may reason like that than you think, Mr. Keeps. Right. Certainly, I think a lot of Masons they reason in the sense of they'll join Freemasonry, and then if the economy becomes bad, or at least their personal economy becomes problematic, they will stop dedicating themselves to Freemasonry and they'll focus on work and home and having two jobs, whatever it is. They don't think the economy is good or the economy is bad. What they think is my personal economy is good or my personal economy is bad, which sometimes is linked to the overall economy. Sometimes somebody's own economic condition is bad because they're making bad decisions. More often than not, though, I think it reflects the broader economic situations. Um, So yeah, dues are not prohibitive. They're $200 a year. I mean, it depends. I'd say between 1 and 200. But even though that doesn't sound prohibitive, I've known some Masons for whom that was too much for a variety of reasons. Or it's not that the dues are too much necessarily. Rather, what happens is, um, and I've seen versions of this. They are they get cut back hours at work. They end up getting a second job to cover the difference. That second job is in evenings. They can't make it to the Masonic building anymore for meetings. Now, again, did they lose their job because of their own foolish choices, or did they lose their job um, because of broader economic trends? Right? But I do think in some ways there can be that assumption. And I do wonder if some people over the last several years have been, hesitant to pull the trigger because they can't afford the cost of being a Freemason, especially that initial outlay, because the yearly dues are between $1 and $200, but um, um, there's usually a one-time initiation fee that can be as much as $500 per year. 500 American, which would be around 700 Canadian, give or take. The pro bono yoke of service is a luxury most of us don't see as a luxury. You're not wrong. We very often greatly underappreciate the services provided pro bono until after the fact. That's true, I think, for almost anything. Like, I never appreciated how wonderful it was to grow up in Winnipeg until I moved away and started looking back on it. Um, that is true. It's also hopefully willingly accepting putting in the effort to be better at service, right? To be better at service to ourselves and to others. And putting in time and effort to be better at it. That's why I say, for example, Freemasons should have first aid, because I think that if we are to be of service to others, we should take steps to be more skilled, and that includes greater skill as it relates to first aid, for example, knowing crisis lines, knowing food banks, et cetera, et cetera. Like the Windsor. So let me double check. Like the Windsor Food Bank is on 875 Olat Avenue and 6955 Cantillon, right? I'd like to know those things. So if anybody ever comes to me and they need assistance, I can be of service to them. Even if I can't give them food myself and maybe they're not a Mason, they can't get benevolence, I can still provide them with some assistance. Or for whatever reason, the lodge can't do benevolence at the time, I can still offer them assistance. At least somewhere to go and some resources. We're giving it. So yeah, I suspect, Mr. Keeps, what I was saying. I suspect it may be the case that more people are thinking about the economy when making these decisions than otherwise. Maybe not directly, but in the sense of I need two jobs. Do I have the time for Freemasonry? Um, whatever it might be. Giving it a bit more time. I'm going to wait to see who joins. As always, just hanging out, waiting to see who wants to chat about Freemasonry. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And don't forget, I will be back on at 1 a.m. tonight. Yeah, no, I agree with that, Michael Moore. I've said similar things. I usually use the term privileged, right? This idea of you are privileged because we have the brethren mutually reinforcing our commitments to brethren, and that is a luxury. But I don't even know if I'd call that a luxury per se. It's a blessing. It's something we're very lucky to have. I think luxury, maybe I would use it more in terms of economic sense and consumption products. I know that we within Freemasonry don't like to think of Freemasonry as a product, and I don't think we should always think about that. But I think there are times when it's worth considering Freemasonry as a product. And that's be a good question to even ask. Is Freemasonry a product? Somebody once defined postmodernism in a really interesting way. They described postmodernism as art that is aware of the fact that it is a product, which did seem kind of, in some ways, needlessly cynical to me. But I think there's a um, very interesting idea to that. The idea of any type of art or service that is aware of the fact that it is itself a product. Hello, Finn GJ2TH. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. Let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral. I'd love to hear them. It's just Finn. We have met before. Okay, well, it's good to meet you again here on the stream. How is your day going? I hope it's going well. Thank you for being here. I hope you're having an excellent night or excellent day, I should say. I'm having a great day. I'm also exhausted. I went to some training in some boxing training. So my shoulders are feeling quite sore at the moment, but that's okay. Yes, I agree. I love Canada. Greatest country in the world. I've said it a million times. Canada is the greatest country in the world, in part because we have the greatest neighbors in the world, amongst the greatest of everything, the greatest people, the greatest scenery, the greatest nature, the greatest Masons, the greatest food, all that good jazz. Interesting. So the dad Mason, why not? Like, I don't completely disagree with you. As a Mason for 20 years, I'm in some ways have a certain discomfort of considering it or thinking about it as a product. Having said that, why would you say no? Because you could argue it is. I mean, you could argue anything that requires a certain amount of time or money from an individual is a product. A movie is a product in that it's 2 hours of your day, X amount for the ticket to go watch it. Freemasonry is, it requires X amount of time in a month, in a year, in a week, combined with X amount of dollars. So I understand the discomfort of it, but in a sense, why not? Certainly, what you see with a lot of Masonic jurisdictions now is um, they are considering what's the word I'm looking for? They are considering marketing techniques used in famous products as a way to promote Freemasonry, right? I've even heard some use marketing terms when discussing Freemasonry. So certainly it seems to be going that way in one sense or another. Nova Scotia, Scottish here from Ireland. Okay, so it's not for sale. True. It's not for sale, but I mean, what is a membership if not something that is, well, I mean, on a certain extent sold? Like if we have somebody come to our doors, because I mean, I believe in I don't believe, I believe in we should not be recruiting, but we have somebody knock on our doors in a Masonic building and say, I'm interested in becoming a Freemason. What are we doing from that point forward? You could argue that we are investigating him, speaking with him, learning about him to see if he'd be a good fit. But in some ways, you could argue that if we're trying to put our best foot forward, um, then in some ways, are we not trying to sell him on this idea of joining? Or if he comes and says, I'm just interested in learning more about Freemasonry, are we not in some sense trying to sell him on joining? Even me, right? I've been very clear about this stream that the goal of this stream is to talk about why I love Freemasonry. It's not trying to convince anybody to join. You could argue, though, at the same time, I am in some ways turning Freemasonry into a product just by me talking about it. If I encourage anybody to potentially join, in some ways, I've treated it as a sale, as a marketable good. Um, you're from Ireland, Celtic. Okay, hey, I'm going to be not in Ireland, but I'm going to be visiting the United Kingdom. I know that Ireland is different than Northern Ireland is different, from the United Kingdom, but I'm at least going to be in that area of the world, if nothing else. No, no, not trying to tell as that is to a degree. I tend to recruit someone to make a purchase. Um, so yeah, I'm not going to I would love to visit Ireland because there's a lot of amazing history in Ireland, a lot of amazing Masonic history in Ireland as well. I don't think I'll get to, but I'll be at an ocean apart, or not even an ocean, a channel away, right? What's it called between the United Kingdom, between England and Ireland? The English channels between England and France, whatever it's called, that will be separating me. Um, no, not trying to sell as that is to a degree. I tend to recruit someone. Um, well, Brother Michael Moore, what do you think of the idea of Freemasonry as a product? I think the issue is if the dead Mason, again, it's funny. I agree with you, but I don't know why. Because it sounds wrong to me the more I think about it. Like, or I feel like there's something we're missing because if I have, um, hold on just one second, I'll be right back. To give an example. This is stuck. If I have like this card, this postcard of the Windsor Masonic Temple, and I give it away for free, but have to first, like, I won't give it to somebody. They have to first ask me for it. You could argue it's still a product because I want to try to talk up this postcard in such a way that I'm sufficiently able to talk it up, that they're going to want to take it. I still have to treat it as a product in that I'm trying to sell the idea of them taking it, right? Just because I'm not doing it for the purpose of getting rich. Like, no one in Freemasonry is trying to get members to enrich themselves. At least they shouldn't. That doesn't mean they're not going to be trying to put the best face on this thing called Freemasonry because they want people to join because they want to grow the lodge. It's like, I think Brother Michael Moore is more where I am, which is honestly, a product is probably a pretty decent term to describe Freemasonry, for better or worse. Many people will think for worse, to be honest, which is perfectly fair. I'm not a fundamentalist per se, Finn, but I do believe that there is at least a base level of morality. My supreme being is not based necessarily on religious understandings, but I tend to base it more on geometric and scientific understandings. I mean, hey, I don't think there's anything. I mean, I've known a lot of really good people who would describe themselves as fundamentalist of their religion, whatever it might be. I've known a lot of people who would describe themselves as fundamentalists of science, interestingly enough. For me, like I said, I believe in a supreme being, but I tend to view the supreme being more in scientific, rational, or geometric terms. You're not wrong, the Dad Mason. What I will say, though, is, by the way, the Dad Mason, please hit the like button. It does seem that the idea of Freemasonry as a product is becoming much more prevalent. Like I said, I've seen and been to a lot of different Masonic events, discussions, whatever it might be, where they're talking about Freemasonry in marketing terms, almost as though they were talking about like selling potato chips. Like, the wording is becoming interchangeable. All right, well then, Finn, explain it to me. What is your kind of, are you more like me in that you tend to believe morality can derive from rational understandings of the universe, and even in some ways scientific understandings of the universe, and certainly geometric understandings of the universe? Do you have a different kind of Bible, or not Bible per se, but book on which you rely upon? I'm not one. I'm kind of like Michael Moore. I think he called himself autistic. He said, describe it to me as if I'm autistic. Another way of saying describe it in simple terms. And I think it's fair. I think we in Freemasonry are taught not to be revilers of religion. And I think that's a good thing, to not do so, to be respectful of everybody's religion and not necessarily cast dispersions on the idea of what's the word, like the idea that people however someone finds their faith is a good thing. Wow, Mr. Keeps coming in hot. Everybody be nice to everybody else on the stream. That's the rule. There are no losers on the Square and Compass stream except for me. I could be a loser. Many people would consider me a loser, but no one else on the stream is. Yeah, I remember that. It's just been it's been a while. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's Finn GJ2TH. I feel like I do recall the term or the name Finn. Um, um, so I think I do remember the name Finn from before. I mean, all I can do is I can explain my view, because I would be one who also would not necessarily rely upon a Bible or a biblical text for my morality. Having said that, I do have one here. which I plan to read, because I want to become more conversant in certainly main religious beliefs than I am now. I feel like I know the basics, but just the basics. The reason being, what's the word I'm looking for? The reason being, we in Freemasonry welcome men of all different faiths. So I'm going to read this, then the Quran, then I think the Torah I understand is a little bit different. Mike is all of those things. He is intelligent and he is good people, and I'm happy to have him on the stream. For me, I've always said I think it's possible to look at the universe, look at the rational nature of the universe, study geometry in particular, and derive moral lessons from it. I definitely don't think the Bible is a lie. I don't necessarily believe it per se, but that doesn't mean it's a lie. It means it's a way for people to orient their faith. So I'm not a fan of that terminology. I wouldn't be a fan of that terminology for any holy book, Bible, Quran, etc. It's a statement of belief, right? Which, by definition, a statement of belief cannot be a lie. Right? It can be potentially incorrect, I suppose. But I think when it comes to religion and religious beliefs, I don't think you can use the term correct and incorrect. I'm not a huge fan of him, Jordan Peterson, but I think he gets it wrong more than he gets it right. But I do think he brings up a really good point when he says, like, when you're talking about a religious text as fundamental as the Bible, the Quran, you can't just rely on simple terms of correct, incorrect. Did it happen? Did it not happen? Is it historical, metaphorical? It has to be viewed on all of those different levels, in my opinion. The Dad Mason, I've been in the study of the Bible, Torah, so many transitory. What would you say, out of curiosity, the Dad Mason, what would you say is the usual, like, have there been any commonalities you've seen between all of the above, between the Bible, Torah, Quran, Vedas, and Buddhism? And of those five, what would you say is like the main similarity? Okay, so do unto others as you would do unto you. You would say that that is found in all five of those works? From a Masonic perspective, I'm also curious, do you find that, like, obviously I've known several Muslim Masons, Jewish Masons, and Christian Masons. I've never known a Buddhist or a Vedas Mason. I've known Hindu, Sikh. Have you met a Buddhist Mason before? I'd be really curious to know how their Buddhist faith interacts with Freemasonry. I know they can be Masons. I don't think I've ever met one. I may have and just didn't know to ask, but to my knowledge, I've never met a Buddhist Mason. How do you find that their Buddhist kind of beliefs interact or connect with Freemasonry? I would be really curious to know. I'm going to be finishing off this stream relatively soon. Yes, it predates the Christian Bible by thousands of years, first appearing in what is now China. Buddhism, okay. I mean, he may. It would be up to the lodge. I mean, like I said, I've never met one, but I believe I've heard of one. My personal opinion is I would probably allow it if they came to me and said, "This is my faith." Because again, I mean, the idea of just because somebody is a man that is born does not automatically mean it cannot be a supreme being, necessarily. Again, I'd have to believe that it was a legitimate reflection of your conscience, right? It kind of goes back to Mr. Keeps, this idea you asked me of, could I take my obligation on a phone book? If my answer would be no, if I believed you were trolling or if I believed that you were just making it up. But if you could convince me, and you would have to convince me, that no, your faith is actually real. The phone book is an actual legitimate representation of that faith. And taking an obligation on that phone book would legitimately touch your conscience in the way a Quran would for somebody who's Muslim or a Bible would for somebody who's Christian, then it would say okay. But you would have to be um, you would have to be very convincing, because my initial reaction would be it's a troll. So that's really good. Actually, that's a really good point. And that should be a longer stream. That might actually be my 24-hour stream in December. To my knowledge, there is no definition of a supreme being. There are definitions of a supreme being. I would say the most common, and this isn't even written down anywhere, this is how I would describe it based upon all my travels and anecdotally speaking with somebody. They would say, if you had to define it, they would define supreme being as any being which impacts and touches upon the conscience of an individual, so as the taking of an obligation with a representation of that supreme being would prick their conscience, for lack of a better term, um, and a being who has made his will known to man and who favors virtue. I guess would be the definition I've seen most consistently used based on my experience. Because again, the reason for this idea of needing to believe in a supreme being, it's twofold. The first is its tradition, its history. It's always been that way since the Anderson Constitutions of 1723. And to believe in a supreme being will speak to your conscience when you're taking your obligation. Um, I suppose in some ways you could go with the definition as found in the Anderson Constitution. I suspect Mackey may have a definition, but it's not one of which I'm aware. Um, but to my knowledge, there is no quote unquote official definition of supreme being. There's different definitions in different jurisdictions, but even then, I don't think it's in any constitutions. Enjoy the Masonic Global Zoom chat, Brother Michael Moore. And thank you as always for being here. You are a very intelligent person, as was said. Well, not, I mean, what I'd say to Dad Mason is look up the Anderson Constitution section on of man and God, or of concerning God and religion. They say they don't allow any stupid atheists, but beyond that, they don't mention God specifically. Um, so, and the Anderson Constitution was 1723, if I recall correctly, reprinted in the States in 1734. So I think there's always this, and this is an Enlightenment era term, right? Supreme being. That's what they say. They say stupid atheist or irreligious libertine. Um, but then they say, and I think I've said this on the stream before, I think it's the most beautiful passage that deals with religious tolerance and freedom. They say, first, stonemasons, so operative masons, have always been charged to maintain and kind of follow the customs of the country to which they visit. So if they don't have to believe it per se, but let's say they visit a country and there's a religious requirement that, I don't know, you wear a certain type of clothing, you have to wear that type of clothing to be respectful of the customs. But they say, look, people will come to their own faith in a variety of ways. Primarily back then, especially, it's where you grew up and what your family believed and what your community believed. But it could also be through your own personal experiences, your own personal coming to Jesus or whatever it is moments. And if that's the case, it's wrong of us as Freemasons to expect anyone to follow the same religion as every other one. It would be unfair because they can't help where they grew up or how they grew up or the life experiences that brought them to their religious understandings. So instead of requiring a specific religious belief or a single God, quote unquote, belief, we're going to allow any Mason to be to have his own understandings and thereby bring together men who would otherwise be at a perpetual distance. I really like that idea. And it's interesting. To my understanding, Mr. Keeps, the reason why he used the term stupid atheist, he didn't use the term, the Anderson Constitution didn't use the term stupid atheist how we might think it. Not stupid atheist as in they're intellectually dumb. They meant stupid in the sense of not being able to understand the oaths that they're taking, at least at an emotional level. Because again, it's this idea of like, if you're an atheist and you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, but you're an atheist, you're not really going to understand what breaking that oath means because you don't believe you've, taken an oath against a higher power that could punish you if you've lied. So it's more stupid in the sense of will not impact their conscience in the way that someone who believes in a supreme being will. An irreligious libertine, it just means this belief in like anything is kind of like an atheist. They believe basically you can do whatever you want, commit any crimes you want, and it's fine, right? Freemasonry has always been you must be respectful of the civil magistrates and civil liberties. Um, we're gonna wait another couple minutes, but I think I'll be ending this stream. I'll be back on at 1 a.m. Hopefully, my sound is operating by then. I'm not sure why I prefer doing it on my cell phone to my laptop. But this has been a very fun stream as always, and thank you to everybody who has been joining. I really appreciate it. Don't forget, follow me on my personal accounts all weekend. I'm going to be taking pictures and celebrating the beauty that is England and Scotland and Newcastle next weekend. Next week, excuse me. I leave on Sunday. I arrive in London on Monday. Yes, it's going to be awesome. I can't wait. It's going to be an absolute blast and a lot of fun. So I look forward to it quite a bit. What, Dad Mason, is there one thing in particular that you are most looking forward to if you had to pick? Oh, I can't wait. I'm going to have a blast. Just to see my family will be wonderful. Oh, what is the one thing you're most looking forward to, the Dad Mason? What is the one thing you can't wait to see, can't wait to do, can't wait to experience? There we go. You and I will have some haggis together. It will be a blast. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Sorry for the technical difficulties this morning or this afternoon. Hopefully, we'll do better shortly, better tonight. All right. See you guys later. Have a great night.